I buried my mother when I was 13. Closed casket, no body, just a story everyone told me to accept. For 15 years, I believed it, until 3 nights ago, I found a file my parents never meant for me to see, a death certificate, signed 2 weeks before the accident. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Then I found the payments, monthly, precise, 15 years straight. And a contract, one line I can't forget, no future contact with the child. That's when it hit me. My mother didn't die. She was paid to disappear. And somehow, she's still out there. Alive. I still visit her grave every year. Not because I believe she's there, but because for 15 years, that was the only place I was allowed to miss her. The cemetery sits on a quiet hill just outside the city. Wind moves differently here. Slower. Like it's careful not to disturb anything that's already buried. Rows of identical stones stretch into the distance, each one holding a version of the truth, or pretending to. I stop in front of hers. Lena Voss, 1985 to 2011. I memorized those numbers when I was 13, back when they still meant something simple, back when grief didn't ask questions. I crouched down, brushing my fingers over the engraved letters. Cold, clean, maintained. It always is. Someone makes sure of that. Not out of love, not really. More like, maintenance. Like this place exists to keep a story intact. I came back, I say quietly. The words feel automatic now, rehearsed. Like something I've said too many times to believe anymore. For years, this was all I had left of her. No photos in the house, no videos, no old belongings, just this stone, a date, and a memory that felt thinner every year. My parents said it was too painful to keep reminders. I believed them. I believed everything they told me. That the accident happened late at night, that the fire spread too fast, that there was nothing left to identify. That's why the casket had to stay closed. I remember asking once, just once, "Can I see her?" My mother, Margaret, knelt in front of me, her hands warm, steady, too steady. "No, sweetheart," she said. "You don't want to remember her like that." I didn't argue, because I trusted her, because I needed to. When you lose someone that young, you don't question the version of events people give you. You hold on to it. You build your world around it. And that's what I did. I built my life on something I never actually saw. I stand up slowly, stepping back from the grave. Something about it feels different today. Not the place, not the air. Me. I reach into my pocket and pull out my phone, opening the photo I took 3 nights ago. A document. Simple. Official. Clean. A copy of the death certificate. I've seen it before, or at least I thought I had, but this version wasn't blurred. It wasn't summarized. It was complete. I stare at it again now, right there in front of the grave it created. My eyes move to the date, the same detail that's been sitting in the back of my mind ever since I found it. The same detail I tried to explain away, ignore, forget. I couldn't, because it doesn't change. No matter how many times I look at it, the certificate was signed 2 weeks before the accident. I let out a slow breath, my fingers tightening slightly around the phone. That's not how mistakes work. That's not how systems fail. That's not how something like this gets buried for 15 years. I look back at the stone, at the name, at the dates that are supposed to define the end of a life. She was legally dead, I murmur. The wind brushes past me, carrying the words away. I swallow. Before she ever died. The thought settles in slowly, not like a shock, like something that was always there, just waiting for me to see it. I glance around the cemetery again. Nothing has changed. Same rows, same silence, same carefully maintained order. But it doesn't feel quiet anymore. It feels constructed, designed, like every detail here exists to support something that isn't entirely true. I step back once more, creating distance between me and the grave. For 15 years, this was where I came to remember her, to grieve her, to feel like there was something real left behind. Now, I'm not even sure she was ever here. And for the first time since I was 13, the question I never asked finally surfaces. Not soft, not hesitant, clear. If she wasn't in that coffin, then what exactly did we bury? I didn't go home right away. I stayed in the parking lot outside the cemetery, engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel like I had forgotten what they were supposed to do next. The photo was still open on my phone. The same document, the same date, unchanged. I stared at it long enough that the numbers stopped looking real, like they were just shapes. Something I could rearrange if I focused hard enough. But they didn't move. They stayed exactly where they were. 2 weeks before the accident. I leaned back slowly in the seat, exhaling through my nose. "There's a reason," I muttered. There had to be. Systems don't fail like that. Not the ones that handle death, not the ones that produce documents that end up carved into stone. If this was wrong, then something else had been right on purpose. That thought didn't sit well. I turned the phone off and dropped it onto the passenger seat. Then I started the car. By the time I got home, the sky was already dim. The house looked the same as it always did. Clean, still, perfect, too perfect. I stepped inside, closing the door quietly behind me. The air felt controlled, temperature set, lighting balanced, everything exactly where it should be. It used to feel like stability. Now it felt like something was being maintained. I walked past the living room without stopping. No photos on the walls. There never were. At least not of her. I used to think that was normal. Now it felt deliberate. I went straight to my room and locked the door. Not because I needed privacy, because I needed distance. I sat down at my desk and pulled out the external drive, the same one I found in my father's office. Still no password. Still no protection. That bothered me more than anything. If this was nothing, it wouldn't matter. If this was something, it shouldn't have been this easy. I plugged it in anyway. The folder opened instantly. Same files, same structure, neat, organized, controlled. I clicked into the financial records first. Rows of transactions filled the screen. Dates, amounts, references. At first glance, it looked clean, professional, normal, but I wasn't looking at it like a normal person. I was looking for patterns, and patterns don't lie. My eyes moved down the list. Month after month. Same date, same amount, no gaps, no errors, no variation. My chest tightened slightly. "That's not a payment," I said quietly. "That's a schedule." I clicked into the details of one transfer. Sender, family trust, receiver, consulting firm. I didn't recognize the name. That didn't mean anything. I opened another. Same structure, different firm, same amount, same date. The pattern repeated, over and over, for 15 years. I leaned forward slightly, elbows on the desk. "Why would you pay someone every month?" I murmured. The answer came faster this time. "Unless you needed them to keep something going." Not something that ended, something that continued. I swallowed. Then I opened another folder. Emails, dozens of them, most from the same time period. I scrolled slowly. Subject lines, legal terms, attachments. Nothing emotional, nothing personal, just structure. Like they weren't dealing with a person. They were managing a process. My cursor hovered over one file. Agreement confirmation, final terms. I stared at it for a second, then clicked. The document opened. Legal language filled the screen. Cold, precise, carefully written to sound neutral. But there was nothing neutral about it. I read the first paragraph, then the second. Then I stopped, because I had already found what I was looking for: compensation, conditions, duration, and one line that made everything else disappear. No future contact with the child under any circumstances. I read it again, slower, like the words might change if I gave them time. They didn't. My fingers tightened slightly against the edge of the desk. "This isn't," I started, but I didn't finish. Because I already knew. This wasn't about death. This wasn't about loss. This was about separation. Designed, agreed to, paid for. I scrolled down. 2 signatures at the bottom of the page. The first one was easy. Daniel Cole, my father. The second one, I didn't want to look at it, but I did. Lena Voss. My chest tightened. Not sharp, not sudden, just heavy. She didn't lose me, I said quietly. The words felt wrong in my mouth, unfamiliar, like they didn't belong to the version of reality I had been living in. I looked back at the screen, at the clean lines, the perfect formatting, the complete absence of anything human. Oh, she signed me away. Silence filled the room, thick, uncomfortable, real. I pushed my chair back slightly, standing up, walking once across the room, then back, trying to place everything where it made sense. It didn't. Because this wasn't something that happened, it was something that was planned. I stopped in front of the desk again, staring at the document, at the date. My eyes narrowed slightly, because something else had just clicked. The agreement was signed, before the accident. I leaned closer to the screen, cross-checking. Dates, files, everything lined up. The contract came first. The death came after. I felt my breath slow, not because I was calming down, because something inside me was settling into place. This wasn't covering something up, I said. My reflection stared back at me from the dark screen. This was building something. The realization didn't explode. It didn't shock me. It locked in, quiet, final. I reached forward and closed the laptop, not to stop, but because I knew this was only the beginning, and whatever came next wasn't going to be an accident. I didn't confront them that night, not because I didn't want to, because I already knew how it would go. They wouldn't deny it. They wouldn't panic. They wouldn't give me anything real. They would control it, just like everything else. So instead, I waited. And I kept digging. The next morning, the house felt exactly the same. My father sat at the table, reading something on his tablet, coffee untouched beside him. My mother moved through the kitchen with quiet precision, like every motion had been practiced. Routine, predictable, safe. I used to think that meant stability. Now it felt like containment. "Morning," my mother said without looking at me. "Morning." My voice sounded normal. That surprised me. I took a seat, glancing briefly at my father. He looked up for a second, nodded, then went back to reading. No tension, no suspicion, nothing that suggested they knew anything had changed, which meant one of two things. Either they didn't know, or they were very good at pretending. They didn't. I picked up a glass of water just to have something to do with my hands. "Did you sleep okay?" she asked. "Yeah." Another lie that sounded too easy. She turned slightly, studying me now, just for a second. Then she smiled, soft, controlled. "Good." That word lingered longer than it should have. I nodded once, then stood up. "I've got work." No one stopped me. No one questioned it. That was the part that bothered me. If everything was normal, then everything was still under control. I didn't go to work. I drove into the city instead, straight to the address I found buried in the documents. It wasn't labeled clearly, just a reference tied to one of the consulting firms, a place that existed on paper. I needed to see if it existed in real life. It did, sort of. The building was old, mid-sized, glass front, nothing that stood out. A directory board near the entrance listed multiple offices. None of them matched the name I was looking for. I stepped inside anyway. Cool air, clean floors, quiet. A receptionist glanced up as I approached. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for North Line Recovery Services." The name felt strange out loud, like it wasn't supposed to be said. She frowned slightly, checking something on her screen. "I'm sorry, we don't have a company by that name here." "Of course you don't." "Maybe under a different listing?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, sir." I nodded slowly. "Thanks." I turned and walked out. Not surprised. Just confirmed. This wasn't something you could find directly. It was something you had to follow. I sat in my car for a few minutes, going over everything again. The payments, the emails, the agreement. Northline wasn't the surface. It was part of the structure underneath, which meant I needed someone who had actually been inside it. Not a file, not a document, a person. I pulled up the secondary records again, scrolling, cross-referencing, and there it was. A name I had seen before, Marcus Hale, private investigator, consultant, attached to the case during the transition period. I stared at the screen for a second, then I searched him. Old license, expired, address outdated, phone disconnected, but buried deeper. A recent record, a liquor license, active, same name, same city. I felt something click, not proof, but direction. The bar wasn't hard to find. Dim lights, worn wood, the kind of place people go when they don't want to be noticed. I stepped inside. The air smelled like alcohol and time. A few people scattered around. Quiet conversations. No one paying attention. Perfect. I scanned the room slowly. Then I saw him. Older than I expected, mid-50s maybe, sitting at the end of the bar, alone, half a drink in front of him. I walked over, stopped a few feet away. Marcus Hale? He didn't look at me right away, just lifted his glass, took a slow sip, then set it down. "You've got the wrong guy," he said. His voice was calm, flat, practiced. I didn't move. "No," I said. "I don't." A pause. Then he turned. His eyes met mine, and something shifted. Not recognition. Something deeper. Something closer to understanding. "You shouldn't be here," he muttered. That was enough. "You worked my case," I said. Not a question. A statement. His jaw tightened slightly. "I don't know what you think you found," he said, "but you should let it go." "I found the agreement." Silence. "I found the payments." Nothing. "I found Northline." That one landed. His eyes flicked slightly, then back. "You don't say that name," he said quietly. I stepped closer. "Then tell me what it is." He stared at me for a long moment like he was deciding something or remembering something he didn't want to. "You really want to know?" he asked. "Yes." Another pause. Then he leaned back slightly, exhaled. "This wasn't an accident," he said. I didn't react. I already knew that. "It wasn't a cover-up either," he continued. That made me pause. Then what was it? His eyes stayed on mine, steady, uncomfortable. It was a transition. The word felt wrong, out of place. "What does that mean?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached for his glass again, took another slow sip, then set it down. "They didn't make her disappear," he said. A beat. "They replaced her." The words settled in, slow, heavy. I felt my chest tighten. "Replaced how?" He shook his head slightly. "You're asking the wrong question." "Then give me the right one." A long silence, then. "Ask yourself why she never came back." I swallowed. "I thought she couldn't." He looked at me, not unkind, but not soft either. "No," he said quietly. "It's because she wasn't supposed to exist anymore." Something inside me shifted, not shock, not confusion. Something deeper, like the ground under everything I believed had just moved. I held his gaze. "And you helped that happen." He didn't deny it, didn't defend it. He just looked tired. "I made sure it worked," he said. The honesty in that was worse than anything else. I took a slow breath, trying to keep everything steady, trying to stay in control of something that was slipping. "Where is she?" I asked. He hesitated, for the first time since I walked in, then, "Oregon," he said. The word landed clean, clear, real. My chest tightened again, closer now. "She's alive," I said. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. I nodded slowly, because now there was only one thing left to do. The flight felt shorter than it should have, or maybe my sense of time just stopped working somewhere between takeoff and landing. I didn't sleep, didn't watch anything, didn't even move much. I just sat there staring at nothing, replaying the same sentence over and over again. They replaced her. Not hid, not lost, replaced. Every time I tried to understand it, it slipped. Like something I wasn't supposed to fully see yet. The air in Oregon hit differently, colder, cleaner, sharp enough that it made breathing feel intentional. I stepped out of the airport with nothing but a backpack and a direction I wasn't entirely sure how to follow. A name I didn't know, a life that wasn't supposed to exist, and somehow I was supposed to find it. The drive took longer than expected. The city disappeared quickly, replaced by long stretches of road, trees, and silence that felt too wide. No traffic, no noise, just distance. It felt like the kind of place people came to be left alone, or to be forgotten. I followed the only lead I had, the account, the location tied to it, a small coastal town that barely showed up on the map unless you zoomed in far enough. By the time I got there, the sky had already turned gray. Wind moved constantly here, not strong enough to push you, just enough to remind you it was always there, watching. I parked near a small grocery store, sat there for a moment, hands still on the wheel. This was it. Not a theory anymore, not a file, something real. I stepped out. The air smelled like salt. The sound of the ocean carried faintly through the streets. Everything felt normal. That was the unsettling part. Nothing about this place suggested anything hidden. No tension, no signs, just people living their lives, which meant whatever I was looking for was built to look exactly like this. I walked into the store. A small bell rang above the door. No one looked at me twice. A few people moved through the aisles. Quiet. Routine. I started walking slowly, not really looking at anything, just observing, trying to feel something. Anything. At first, nothing. Then, I saw her. It wasn't instant. Not the kind of moment people describe. No sudden realization. No dramatic shift. Just a pause. Then something inside me adjusted. She stood near the back, looking at a shelf. Her hair was shorter, lighter, her posture different, older. Of course she was older. 15 years don't pass quietly. But it was her. Not because she looked exactly the same, because something about her didn't change. Something I recognized before I could explain it. My chest tightened. I didn't move, didn't speak. I just watched, trying to connect the person in front of me with the one I buried. They didn't match, but they overlapped just enough to hurt. She reached for something, turned slightly, and for a brief second, our eyes met. No reaction, no recognition, just a passing glance. Then she looked away, like I was nothing, like I had always been nothing. Something inside me dropped, not loud, not sharp, just gone. I took a step forward, then another, each one heavier than the last, until I was close enough that the distance didn't feel safe anymore. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. I swallowed. Tried again. Mom? The word felt wrong, like it didn't belong in this place, in this version of her. She froze, completely. Her hand still midair, her body still. Slowly, she turned, and this time, she saw me. Really saw me. Her eyes widened just slightly, not shock, not relief, something else. Something controlled, something measured. We stood there facing each other, 15 years of distance reduced to a few feet of silence. No one else in the store mattered, nothing else existed, just this moment, just this truth, and the realization that the person I had spent half my life mourning had been standing in the world this entire time. You shouldn't be here. Her voice was quiet, flat, not unkind, just certain. The words hit harder than anything else. Not my name, not recognition, a boundary. I felt my jaw tighten. I found you, I said. It sounded smaller than I expected, like it didn't carry the weight it should have. Her eyes flicked past me. Quick, checking, then back. You need to leave, she said, a little firmer now. I shook my head. No. The word came out before I could think. I'm not leaving. Her expression didn't change. but something behind it did. Ethan? Hearing my name from her felt wrong, like it didn't belong to her anymore. You don't get to tell me to leave, I said, stepping closer. Not after... I stopped, because I didn't know how to finish that sentence. Not after leaving, not after choosing, not after signing. The words existed, but none of them felt complete. She seemed to understand anyway. Not here, she said quietly. I glanced around. A few people had started to notice. Not openly, but enough. She was right. This wasn't the place. Then where? I asked. A pause, long enough to feel like a decision. Then she nodded. Outside. The wind hit harder behind the building, colder, sharper. We stood facing each other again, no shelves, no distractions, just space, and everything we hadn't said. I know about the agreement, I said. No build-up, no hesitation. Her eyes didn't widen, didn't shift, but something inside them closed. I know about the payments, I continued, the conditions. Still nothing. I know you didn't die. A flicker, gone just as fast. And I know you chose this. The last part came out harder, because it needed to, because if I softened it, I wasn't sure I could say it at all. Silence, then, I didn't choose it the way you think. Her voice was steady, controlled, measured. That's not what the documents say. Documents don't tell you everything. I let out a breath. They tell me you signed. I did. No hesitation, no denial, just the truth. And somehow, that hurt more. Why? I asked. The word felt smaller than it should have been, but it carried everything. She looked at me for a long moment, like she was seeing the result of something she decided a long time ago. I didn't have the life to keep you, she said. The wind moved between us, cold, constant, and they did. I didn't respond right away. Her words stayed there, hanging between us. I didn't have the life to keep you. Simple. Clean. Like everything else in this story, I let out a slow breath, looking past her for a second, at the ocean, gray, endless, unchanging, then back at her. That's not a reason, I said. It's the truth. Her voice didn't rise, didn't defend, just held. That's your version of it, I replied. A pause. Then, it's the only one that mattered at the time. I shook my head slightly. No, I said. The one that mattered was mine. That landed. I could see it. A small shift in her expression. Not guilt. Not exactly. Something closer to recognition. You think I didn't think about that? She asked quietly. I think you made a decision without me. The words came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't take them back. She didn't react immediately, just stood there, letting the wind fill the space. Then, I made the only decision where you didn't lose everything. I let out a short breath. I lost you. Silence. That one didn't need a response, because we both knew it was true. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The tension shifted, not gone, just deeper, more complicated. Then I stepped forward slightly. One thing doesn't make sense, I said. Her eyes met mine again. What? The payments. A flicker. There it was. Small but real. They never stopped, I continued. 15 years. Same pattern. She didn't answer. That's not a one-time deal, I said. That's maintenance. Still nothing. Why are they still paying? Her jaw tightened slightly. They're not paying me. I know. That surprised her. Just for a second. I saw the structure, I added. Trust, shell companies, routing. Silence. Then, they're not for me, she said again. Quieter this time, more careful. Then who? A pause, long enough to feel deliberate. People who keep things in place. Marcus's words, almost identical. I felt something settle into place. "So this didn't end," I said. "No, it's still active." "Yes." The confirmation landed heavier than I expected, because it meant this wasn't just something that happened. It was something that was still happening. Right now, around us. I glanced back toward the street. Cars passing, people walking, everything normal, everything untouched. "Do they know I'm here?" I asked. Her expression didn't change. "I don't know." That wasn't reassuring. "But if they do," she added. She didn't finish. She didn't need to. I nodded slowly, because I understood, or at least, I was starting to. "They don't chase problems," I said. The words came from somewhere else, from the files, from the patterns. "They contain them." Her eyes sharpened slightly. "You're figuring it out." That wasn't comfort. That was confirmation. I felt something shift again. Not fear, not yet. Awareness. "This whole thing," I said, gesturing slightly between us, "it wasn't just about separating us. No. It was about control." "Yes." The word came without hesitation, without resistance, and that made it worse. "Control over what?" I asked. A pause. Then, "Outcomes." The answer was simple, but it carried more weight than anything else she had said. "They don't take risks," she continued. "They remove them." I thought back to everything I had seen, the documents, the structure, the precision. Nothing about it felt random. Nothing about it felt emotional. It was clean, designed, built. "They didn't just erase you," I said slowly. Her eyes held mine. "They erased the possibility of you coming back." She didn't deny it. Because she couldn't. Because it was true. "And if you tried?" I asked. Her expression shifted again, just slightly. "Then I wouldn't be standing here." The wind cut between us, colder now, sharper. I held her gaze, trying to understand where the line was, where this stopped being control and started being something else. "So what am I in this?" I asked. The question came out quieter, less anger, more something else. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at me. Really looked, like she was seeing something she hadn't expected. "An outcome," she said. The word hit harder than anything else, not because it was loud, because it fit everything. I felt my chest tighten, not sharply, just heavy. "They built a version of your life," she continued. "One they could predict. And if I step outside it," a pause. Then, "they adjust." The word echoed something I had already seen. Recalibration. Not reaction. Adjustment. I looked away for a second. At the ocean again. At something that didn't change no matter how long you watched it. Then back at her. "You've known this the whole time, Mum," I said. "Yes." "And you stayed?" "Yes." No hesitation, no defense. Just truth. "Why?" This time the question felt different. Not accusatory, not emotional, just necessary. She held my gaze, and for the first time since I found her, her voice shifted. Not controlled, not measured, real. Because I knew what happens to people who don't. Silence. Heavy, unavoidable. I let that sit, let it settle, because I could feel it now, not just in the words, in everything. This wasn't just a decision she made, it was a system she was still inside. And now, so was I. I felt it before I understood it. Something had changed. Not around me, inside the system, inside whatever this was that I had stepped into. The conversation with her didn't end, it just stopped. Like we both reached a point where saying more wouldn't give us anything new, only make it worse. "I need to go," she said. Not abruptly, not cold, just final. "Go where?" I asked. "Back to where I belong." The answer didn't sit right. "Is that what this is?" I said. "Belonging?" Her eyes held mine. "No." she said quietly. It's staying alive. That was the last thing she gave me. No goodbye, no reassurance. She just turned and walked away. I didn't follow her, not because I didn't want to, because I knew I wasn't supposed to. And for the first time since this started, I understood what that meant. There were lines in this system, invisible, but very real, and crossing them had consequences. I stood there for a few seconds after she disappeared around the corner. The wind moved through the empty space she left behind, cold, constant. Then I turned back toward the parking lot, toward my car, toward whatever came next. It started before I even reached the door. My phone vibrated. Once, then again, rapid, too fast to be normal. I pulled it out. 3 notifications, all at once. Bank alert, email alert, security alert. My chest tightened. I opened the first one. Account suspended. Temporary restriction due to unusual activity. I frowned. Opened the second. Multiple login attempts detected. Location mismatch. Then the third. Device access flagged. Monitoring initiated. A slow, cold feeling spread through my chest. Not panic, recognition. They adjust. Her voice echoed in my head. I looked up, scanning the street. Nothing. Same cars, same people, same quiet movement of a place that didn't know anything had changed. But I did. I opened my banking app. Locked. I tried again. Denied. I checked another. Same result. All of them, every account, every access point. Gone. I exhaled slowly, not because I was calm, because I was starting to understand. They don't chase you, I muttered. My eyes moved back to the notifications. They close your world. I got into the car and shut the door. The silence inside felt different now, not empty, pressured, like something had shifted around me without moving. I started the engine. The dashboard lit up. Normal. Everything looked normal. Until it didn't. For a split second, the screen flickered, just once, then stabilized. I froze, watching, waiting. Nothing else happened, but that was enough. I reached for my phone again, opened settings, checked permissions, location services, active. Camera, active, microphone, active. I felt my jaw tighten, slow, controlled. They're not hiding, I said quietly. They're watching. The thought didn't scare me. Not yet. It focused me. I pulled out of the parking lot, merging onto the road, driving, no destination, just movement, because staying still didn't feel like an option anymore. A few minutes passed. Then, my phone rang. Unknown number. I stared at it. Didn't move. It kept ringing. Steady. Persistent. Like it knew I was going to answer eventually. I let it ring twice more. Then I picked up. Hello? Silence. Then, Ethan. My grip tightened on the wheel. I knew that voice. Calm, measured, controlled. Dad, a pause. Not long, just enough. You've gone further than we expected, he said. No anger, no urgency, just observation. I kept my eyes on the road. You already knew I would, I replied. Another pause. You were always going to find something, he said. We accounted for that. Of course you did. That's why you're calling, I asked. To make sure you understand what comes next. I let out a short breath. And what's that? Silence. Then, you come home. The words were simple, but they carried weight. Not a suggestion, a correction. I shook my head slightly. That's not happening. I wouldn't be so certain. My hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. You've already seen what happens when you step outside the structure, he continued. I glanced at my phone, at the locked accounts, the flagged systems. They're just inconveniences, I said. No, he replied calmly. They're limits. The distinction landed, sharp, controlled. They'll escalate, he added, only if you force them to. I didn't respond right away, because part of me already knew that was true. You think you're uncovering something, he continued, but you're moving through something that was built long before you started looking. I felt that again, that shift, that realization. "You built it," I said. A pause. Then, "We maintained it." Not denial, not confirmation, something in between, more dangerous. I swallowed. "Then why let me see any of it?" The question came out before I could stop it. A small silence. Then, "Because control isn't about hiding everything." His voice stayed steady. "It's about deciding what matters." The words settled in, heavy, calculated. "And what matters?" I asked. Another pause. Then, "You." That wasn't the answer I expected. "That's why you need to come back, Vasak," he said. "Before this becomes something you can't step out of." I almost laughed. "You mean something you can't control?" "No," he said quietly. "Something you won't survive." Silence. Thick, uncomfortable, real. I kept driving. The road stretched ahead, empty, uncertain. "You always taught me to ask questions," I said finally. A small pause. "Yes. I just didn't realize there were limits." "There always are." The answer came without hesitation, without apology. I nodded slowly, even though he couldn't see it. "Then I guess I'm about to find them," I said. Another pause, longer this time, then, "Ethan." His voice shifted slightly, not softer, just more direct. "If you keep going," a beat, "we won't be able to protect you." The line went quiet, then dead. I lowered the phone slowly. The engine hummed beneath me. The road kept moving forward. And for the first time since this started, I understood exactly where I stood. Not outside the system, not chasing it, inside it, visible, tracked, and no longer protected by the people who built it. I didn't go back to the motel, not immediately. Instead, I drove until the town disappeared behind me, past the last gas station, past the last house, until the road narrowed and the ocean opened up beside me like something that didn't care whether I stopped or kept going. I pulled over near a cliff, turned off the engine. Silence. Real silence this time. No notifications, no voices, no systems, just wind and water. I leaned forward, resting my hands against the steering wheel, letting everything catch up. My accounts were gone, my access was gone. My father had called, and my mother, she had walked away like this was something that had already been decided years ago. Because it had. I closed my eyes for a second, then opened them again. Because one thought kept pushing through everything else. If they were reacting to me, then I wasn't the first. I reached for my phone. Still no signal. That wasn't an accident. I scrolled anyway. Files, screenshots, notes I had taken. Then I stopped. The folder. The one from the drive. I hadn't gone through all of it. Not completely. Not deeply. Because until now, I thought I was looking at something specific. Something personal. Now I knew better. I opened it, scrolled past what I had already seen. Contracts, payments, emails, then deeper, further, until I found something different. A list, no title, no explanation, just names, rows of them, dozens, maybe more. Each one formatted the same way: name, date, status. My chest tightened. I tapped on one. A profile opened. Minimal, clean, controlled. Transition completed. Another one. Same structure, different name, different date, same status. My grip on the phone tightened. I scrolled faster now. More names, more entries, more patterns. They weren't random. They were spaced, timed, organized, like something that was being repeated over and over. I swallowed. "This isn't just me," I said quietly. The words felt small compared to what I was seeing. I tapped another entry, scrolled down, there. A note, short, precise. Subject reassigned, identity stabilized. I froze. Reassigned, not hidden, not removed, replaced. Again. The same word, the same idea, everywhere. I leaned back slightly in the seat, staring at the screen, trying to process the scale of it. trying to understand what I was actually looking at. This wasn't a case. This wasn't a mistake. This was a system, and it had been running for a long time. Long before me. Long before her. I scrolled again, slower this time, looking for something specific. I didn't know what, until I found it. My name, Ethan Cole. My chest stopped, just for a second. Then, everything came back at once, louder, heavier, faster. I tapped it. The file opened, clean, structured, just like the others. Name, date, status. But this one wasn't completed. It was marked differently. Active. I stared at the word, not understanding, not wanting to. Active, not finished, not closed, ongoing. I felt something cold move through me. Not fear, recognition. I scrolled further down. There were notes, more detailed than the others. Subject remains within projected parameters. My jaw tightened. Projected. Parameters, like I wasn't a person, like I was something that had been measured, designed. Behavioral deviation detected. That one hit harder because it was recent, very recent. Monitoring increased. The words blurred for a second, then sharpened again. I swallowed, slowly. They're not just watching, I said. They're tracking outcomes. Everything clicked. The payments, the structure, the control. It wasn't just about keeping her away. It wasn't just about keeping me safe. It was about maintaining a result, a version of reality that stayed within limits. And I had just stepped outside of it. I leaned back in the seat, staring at the ocean, trying to slow everything down, trying to think, because panic wouldn't help. Emotion wouldn't help. Only understanding would. They built this, I said, not to anyone, just out loud. They repeat it. That was the part that mattered. This wasn't unique. This wasn't special. This was scalable. I looked back at the phone, at the list, at the names, at the people who had been turned into something else, or removed from something they were supposed to be. And for the first time since this started, I felt something different. Not confusion, not anger, perspective. This wasn't about finding the truth anymore. It was about understanding the system that controlled it. And if I wanted to survive inside it, I needed to stop thinking like someone looking for answers. I needed to think like something they couldn't predict. I locked the phone slowly, set it down, and stared out at the horizon. Because now I knew one thing for sure. This was never just about me. I didn't drive back right away. I stayed there, watching the ocean, letting the scale of it settle in. Not just the system, not just the list, the fact that I was inside it. Not outside, not observing. Part of it. Active. The word kept coming back. Active. Not a victim, not a mistake. A variable. Something still being processed. I let out a slow breath, then reached for my phone again. No signal. Still. But that didn't matter anymore, because I wasn't looking for connection. I was looking for structure. If they were tracking me, if they were adjusting based on what I did, then there had to be a pattern, not in the past, in the response. I opened the file again, my file, scrolled slowly, carefully, looking past the obvious, looking for what didn't belong. Then I saw it, a line I hadn't noticed before, buried between updates. Escalation threshold pending. I frowned slightly. Threshold. That wasn't about monitoring. That was about action. I tapped it. Nothing expanded, no detail, just the line. Waiting, like something that hadn't happened yet. My chest tightened slightly. They're not reacting randomly, I said quietly. They're waiting for something. A trigger, a line I hadn't crossed yet. I leaned back in the seat, thinking. What counted as escalation? Finding her? Seeing the files? Contacting Marcus? No, that had already happened, and they didn't stop me. They adjusted, contained, watched. So what was different? What would push it further? I stared at the screen. Then it clicked. Exposure. Not knowing, not seeing, but proving, sharing, breaking containment. That's the line, I said. Not to anyone. just stating it. As long as I was inside the system, quietly moving through it, I was manageable, predictable. But if I stepped outside that, if I made it visible, then I wasn't just a variable anymore. I was a problem, and problems got removed. I swallowed slowly, because now I understood something else. They weren't trying to stop me from finding the truth. They were waiting to see what I did with it. I picked up the phone again, scrolled back to the list, the other names, the other subjects, one by one. Most of them had the same status: completed, stable, no deviations, no escalation, just finished, contained. But a few, very few, were different, marked the same way as mine. Active. I tapped one. Different name, different date, same structure. But at the bottom, escalation initiated. My chest tightened. I scrolled further. The file ended abruptly. No follow-up, no outcome, just stopped. I opened another, same pattern, active. Then escalation. Then nothing. No closure, no completion, just absence. I felt it then, not fear, understanding. They don't resolve escalation, I said quietly. They end it. The word settled in, cold, final. I locked the phone again, set it down, and stared straight ahead. Because now the rules were clear. Stay inside, stay quiet, stay predictable, or cross the line and disappear. My phone vibrated. Once, I froze. No signal, no connection. But it vibrated again. I picked it up slowly. No caller ID, no number, just one message, a single line. No further deviation recommended. I stared at it, my grip tightening slightly. Then, another message. Return to baseline. I let out a slow breath, because now it wasn't indirect anymore. It wasn't hidden. It wasn't implied. They were talking to me, directly. I typed a response before I could stop myself. Or what? I hit send. The message delivered instantly. No delay, no signal, nothing normal about it. A few seconds passed. Then, a reply. Escalation. One word, nothing else, no explanation, no warning, just confirmation. I stared at the screen, then slowly looked up. At the road, at the ocean, at the empty space around me. And for the first time since this started, I realized something that changed everything. This wasn't a system I was trying to understand. It was a system that was trying to understand me. I didn't reply again. Not immediately. The phone stayed in my hand, screen still lit, the last word sitting there like it didn't need anything else. Escalation. No explanation, no emotion, just a state, like everything else in their system. I locked the screen slowly and set the phone down on the passenger seat. Then I started the engine. The car hummed to life. Normal. Everything still looked normal. That was the part I understood now. It would always look normal, until it didn't. I drove back toward town, not fast, not slow, just steady, because speed didn't matter anymore. Direction did. They weren't trying to stop me from moving. They were watching where I chose to go. So I chose carefully. Not the motel, not the store, not anywhere predictable. I turned off the main road and followed a smaller one that ran along the coast. Fewer houses, less traffic, more distance. The kind of place that didn't show up unless you were looking for it. Or avoiding something. I pulled over again. Different spot. Same ocean. Same endless horizon. I turned off the engine. Silence settled in, but it didn't feel empty anymore. It felt observed. I leaned back in the seat, staring forward, thinking. Not about what I had already seen, about what came next, because now the structure was clear. They didn't hide the truth. They controlled what happened after you found it, and I had reached that point. So this was the part that mattered. What I did now. I picked up the phone again, unlocked it, opened the file, scrolled to my name. Active. Still ill? Waiting. Then I scrolled further down, past the notes, past the updates, to something I hadn't opened yet, a section labeled Projection. My chest tightened slightly. I tapped it. The file loaded, slowly, then text, structured, clean, familiar. Subject exhibits high pattern recognition. I let out a short breath. That's one way to put it. I kept reading. Likelihood of continued investigation, 92%. A pause. My eyes stayed on the number. Not surprised. Just confirmed. They expected this. Probability of escalation event, pending. That word again. Pending, not random, not uncertain. Waiting. Then, recommended outcome pathways. I felt something shift. This wasn't observation. This was planning. I scrolled. 2 options. Clear. Defined. Like everything else. Pathway 1. Reintegration. Pathway 2. Removal. My grip tightened around the phone. Reintegration. Go back. Return to baseline. Become predictable again. Controlled. Safe. Removal. I didn't need an explanation for that one. I had already seen what happened to the others. The files that stopped. The names that disappeared. The stories that ended without explanation. I exhaled slowly. Because now, there was no ambiguity left. No confusion. No illusion that I was still figuring something out. I wasn't. I had reached the point where the system stopped being hidden and started making decisions about me. My phone vibrated again. Same unknown source, same pattern. I didn't hesitate this time. I opened it. One message. Choose. That was it. No details, no instructions, just the word. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I looked back at the screen, at the 2 pathways, reintegration, removal. I let the silence stretch, let the weight of it settle. Because this wasn't just a decision about what I did next. It was a decision about what I was willing to become. I thought about the house, the routine, the version of my life that had been built for me. Predictable, stable, controlled. I thought about her. Living under a different name, following the rules, surviving, and I thought about the list. The others, the ones who didn't stay within the lines, the ones who escalated, the ones who disappeared. I closed my eyes for a second, then opened them again, because the answer wasn't in any of that. It wasn't in the past, it wasn't in them. It was in one simple realization. This system only worked if people accepted the choices it gave them. I picked up the phone, typed slowly, deliberately, then stopped, because something else had just clicked, a third option, not written, not offered, but there. If they were watching what I chose, if they were predicting my behavior, then the only way out was to stop behaving like something they could predict. I deleted what I had typed, started again. Different this time, not a choice, a disruption. I hit send. The message delivered instantly. No delay, no signal, just like before. A few seconds passed, nothing. Then, the screen flickered, just once. The file in front of me refreshed, automatically. My name changed. Status, unresolved. I stared at it, my pulse steady, my breathing even, because for the first time since this started, I wasn't inside their outcome. I wasn't following their path. I had stepped outside the structure, not by choosing one of their options, but by refusing both. The phone vibrated again, one last message, this time different. No command, no warning, just one line. Deviation acknowledged. I leaned back in the seat, looking out at the ocean, at something that didn't follow rules, didn't stay contained, didn't care about outcomes. And for the first time, I understood what that meant. They could control the system. They could control the story, but they couldn't control what I chose to become inside it. I spent 15 years believing I lost my mother, but the truth was never about losing her. It was about control. They didn't just erase her. They built a version of my life where I would never look back. Now I know the truth, and the system is watching. So tell me, if you were given only 2 choices, go back to a life that was never yours or risk disappearing completely, what would you choose?